Here's my ultramarine blue. Three blues I often use are cerulean, cobalt, and ultramarine. Cobalt is very close to ultramarine, but ultramarine can go darker. So if you want a greater range of values for your blues, then go with ultramarine blue. It's not a staining color, so it will lift if you want it to. And then here's my burnt sienna, which is a color that's really, I can't imagine not having these two colors in my palette. And so if you mix them, you have this warm color and a cool color, and mix them together. You get this warm brown, this dark brown. Here's my testing strip. Very dark. So this can go even more neutral if I add more blue. See, now I'm getting something that's practically black. And if I wanted this black, I could use burnt umber instead of burnt sienna. But they're both earth colors. So now by diluting this, I get a nice gray. And so if I drop some more brown into it, it's a warmer gray. And if I drop more blue into it, it's a cool gray. It's a cool gray. So you have a great range. And like I said, you could do we did a whole winter scene this year in one of my classes, just using these two colors. We didn't need any other colors, and it worked out great. All right, so I'm going to make a dilute mix of this, make a kind of a neutral gray. And so I'm making it much more dilute. And I think I'm just quickly going to mask this. I think this will look more interesting. All right, so I'm going to take my very dilute neutral, and I'm going to paint everywhere except where it's white. So even if it's a darker value or the darkest value, I'm going to cover it. And so here I go. So there's another rock back there. So painting over that, and just where the lights are. And you're not going to be able to get all the little flecks of white. Don't worry about that, because we're going to be using a little white paint and spatter at the end. Some people don't even have white paint in their paint box. I do not have white paint on my palette because I don't want it to contaminate my other paints. And as I go along, I can make this, I could drop a little blue in, make it a little bluer, just for fun. I could make it a little browner, just as long as it's light. And And where I can, I'll put in a little, suggest the movement of the water with my brush stroke, like here, wherever I see that opportunity. And I'm leaving a lot of little dry spots as I go along. I'm letting them happen accidentally to suggest the frothiness of the water, but I'm not slavishly trying to replicate the photograph. So it makes it easier to do if you're just focused on the whites. Here I'm suggesting the movement of the water. Another thing that happens with this color combination is it granulates and separates. And so if you don't fuss too much, it will, you'll be able to see an interesting pattern in the paint. All right, this is just about done. This was one area of passage of white that I wanted to make sure I saved, so I just blotted there. Okay, so that's it so far. Except the whites and the lightest midtone. Right, so I have to program my head there. Excuse me. So a lot of the water that I see is this darker color. But on the rocks, besides the whites, I'm seeing the light midtone. So maybe I'll start with this rock. So I'm going to start with this clef here in the rock. So I'm painting where it's black, but I'm also painting where it's a dark value, darker midtone. Now to the side of the rock here. So this gets into the darker, it's not black here, but it's the darker midtone. And I'm not going to worry about those whites. If we can add a few suggestions later. So I'm painting the water, and in the course of painting the water, I'm defining the shape of the rock. If I leave little flecks of white, all for the good, but worry about it. So now I'm defining this rock. And there's some frothy water up here. So suggest some water movement. And then there's some of the darkest here in this rock. Now here's this big rock. I didn't draw it exactly the way it is in the picture. Some things are not in the same place, but that's all right. I'll go back and move the rocks. Okay, so I'm going to go in with the darks now. I think I'm going to skip drawing it. I'm just going to go right in because it doesn't seem too wet. And so now the color is going to be much stronger. Now we're getting into, that was the last shade. Now I'm doing this. And so I'm going to start right here. So now I'm only doing the darks. And now I'm giving you another option, which is to have an extra brush with just water on it. So if you have a hard edge and you really don't want a hard edge, you can soften it. And that comes in handy with the water because you have these transitions from black to light in the water. Now, at the top of the picture is the part of the water that's farthest from us. And as it uh, in the bottom of the picture, we're looking down. And then up here, we're looking out. And it's farther away. And so you get these the horizontal movement of the water. But where there's a reflection, the reflection is vertical. You have these vertical lines. So that's what's going on right here, right there. It's a reflection of something, a tree, or, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm laying my brush down just to get some of that horizontal quality. So this is where you can get painterly with this damp brush that you have on hand. I think it's looking pretty good on the screen. So here, there's a very complicated movement going on right here, but you can just kind of simplify that. I want to suggest water. So I just made a little stroke here with the dark, and then with the damp brush, I feathered out one end and just softened it, but I let it just kind of suggest the flow of the water. Going back to this rock. Dark sand. So besides the underside of this rock in the foreground, you also have the reflection of the dark. So I'm dragging that dark color down. when I'm simplifying organic shapes like water, I'll, rather than try to mimic what I see in the photo, I mean, I'll use that as reference, but I'll just try to, I kind of create these, they're almost interlocking shapes. So these little serpentine-like shapes work well with water. So this kind of fits in there. And then this, you can imagine, well, get another example here. So I have these dark shapes, and then these light shapes kind of, they're similar. And things are just kind of moving in and out like that. So it's kind of like a stylized version of water. And it's a good way to represent water without trying to mimic the photograph. Because like I said, the photograph is this one instant where everything's frozen. And you want to convey movement. So this is how you can do it. All right. Just put a couple more darks in. Again, I'm going to make those shapes. And I think I'll put a little dark behind this rock just to really make it pop. All right, so there we have our rock study. Light and value on rocks. My titanium white, Chinese white is fine also. And I'm just going to test it on something. Okay, so I tested it on this picture. I went like that. So I'm holding my finger like this, and I hit the brush, the metal part of the brush against my finger. And that sends the white paint flying. So I'm looking at this picture again and thinking about where I want some of that sparkle. And I think I want it over here. Oh, see, it's better already. And it was so much fun. And I'll put some over here. And so this is not duplicating the photo. It's suggesting the sparkle. And if you don't like the sparkle anywhere, you can just dab it up with a tissue. Like, let's say I didn't want the sparkle up here. And then the other thing you could do is if you just want to dip dab a little, you can just put some little, like if parts of the water look too hard edge, you could break it up with the white, and that works. Because like I said, I have this kind of stylized way of doing the water. But if that looks too stylized, you can just break it up with the white. And I'm resisting the urge to paint with it.